Hello, I'm Sam Hanson and I'm here in West Sussex at the beautiful family home of professional flat jockey Harry Bentley, and we're going to take a little trip down memory lane. So Harry, a lot of people probably wouldn't think you're really old enough to have formulated memories, but you've been professional jockey for a good few years now, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. I've been riding, this is my 10th season professionally riding now, and I don't know where the time's gone, but yeah, there are a few memories included in that. It's 10 years.
So let's go back to the very beginning, really, sort of childhood and where it all began. Did you grow up here in West Sussex?
Yeah, this is where I've grown up all my life, and yeah, it's been a fantastic setting to have horses and obviously join the pony club down here, so yeah.
And horses were presumably an integral part of growing up, were they?
Yeah, very, very important. Family, mum and dad are incredibly sort of involved with horses and the hunting scene. And then myself and my brother, we've always had ponies from a very young age. So, as I say, we're in the perfect setting for that.
Cool. And at what age can you remember did you actually first sort of put a leg over a horse?
Well, I can't even remember when it was. It was really young. I mean, I think by the time I was sort of 3, we had a pony at home. As I say, my brother was riding as well, so very, very young age, and we've never been without them. My brother ended up having his own pony and myself as well. So yeah, for a very long time.
So actually having an older brother that was sort of doing it as well, you know, that presumably brought out a competitive streak from an early age, did it? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, Ben was always sort of pushing me and sort of telling me how much better he was and stuff, and naturally I was sort of trying to lay up and outdo him as well. So it was very good, that sort of competitive rivalry. And he was also incredibly keen on being a jockey as well from a young age. He was sort of more into the national hunt side of things. And I was always very, very small, so I wanted to be a flat jockey. So we both had our sort of things that we were going to do.
And at what point did you actually, you know, was that a real dream? Like, sort of, what point did you say, racing's what I want to go for?
It was really young. I mean, I remember very, very clearly watching the 1997 Derby when Benny the Dip won, and we had a bit of an interest just because of, you know, Benny the Dip and my brother being called Ben. So, but I remember that really, really well, and we actually went and visited him at his stables in Newmarket sort of a week or two after he won the race, and I would have only been 5 years old at the time. Oh. And I remember that, and I just remember sort of that was just the course I was going to go down. And as I mentioned, I was always very, very small, and my dad was always sort of saying, "Oh, this will be with you one day." So it was sort of took its natural progression.
So family supportive the whole way through?
Very much so. They weren't in any way sort of pressure on, this is what you've got to do. It was very much, you know, if that's sort of what you want to do, then we'll very much support you and get behind you, which they have done from the word go, which has been incredibly helpful to me, to having that support system there. And even in my young days of when I first started a job in racing, Dad used to drive me into work at 5 o'clock every morning for over 2 years, because obviously I couldn't drive, I was too young. So no, they've been unbelievably helpful and supportive the whole time.
And that first job, would that have been Gary Moore's?
Yep, that was my first job in racing. I mean, I used to ride out just over a field away from where we're sat now, at Richard Rose, when I was sort of 12. I used to go in the odd time and sit on one of the horses. Dad used to tack them up for me because I wasn't even big enough to put a pad on them or anything like that. So I rode a couple of Richards then, and then when I was sort of 15, 16, started going to Gary's, and went from there.
So you were 15, 16 when you started Gary's. I mean, I remember you walking in the gates. I was riding out there at the time, and you know, I thought you were 7. Like you were tiny, weren't you?
Yeah, I really was. I mean, I'm certainly no giant now, but I really was very, very small. And at school, I was so much smaller than anyone else, and it was, yeah, it became apparent that I was going to be the ideal size to be a jockey. And I did struggle at first when I first went to Gary's. I mean, a lot of the horses are jump horses, and they are different to the flat horses. You know, they're that bit sort of heavier headed and a little bit sort of more taxing to ride at times. And I did struggle. I used to find myself getting run away with a bit, and but it was great. I mean, it was thrown in the deep end, and it taught me how to ride them.
That's it, yeah. You mentioned school there. How academic were you as a kid?
I mean, I was never at the top of the class, that's for sure. I've never been terrible, but I found it hard. You know, I got some pretty good GCSEs, which I was happy with, and I could have continued to A levels.
Can we put you on the spot?
There was an A star in there.
Oh, fair play. Fair
But
play.
only
Well, that's
one.
good.
I mean, there was one.
Leave it there. Leave it there. That's good.
I'll just leave that there. Yeah, there were a few B's and C's, but they certainly weren't bad.
Solid.
And I could have continued and done my A levels and potentially gone to university and gone down that route. But I was well aware that if I wanted to continue or pursue a career in racing and be a jockey, then I knew I had to start from a young age, and sort of 16 is when you want to be starting. Even if you do your A levels and finish at 18, start things from there, you've almost missed the boat, because time waits for no man in this game.
That's right. And so then, those early days at Gary Moore's, like you say, quite a proving ground and quite a tough start. At what point did you start to think, right, now I want to get the licence and, progress things now?
It was one of those things I wasn't sort of pushing Gary for or anything like that. I was, to be honest, as much as I knew that's what I wanted to do, I was still young. I wasn't thinking, start racing and all that. But Gary just sort of approached me one day. I think it was actually just during sort of first or second lot. Gary came up to me and just said, would you be interested in getting your licence? And I wasn't actually working for Gary full time there. I was just riding out sort of in the summer holidays or something like that. I wasn't sort of actually employed then. But he mentioned if I were to get your licence, I could sort of support you and give you a few rides. And would that be of interest? And I sort of came home pretty excited and spoke to mum and dad and told them the situation, and actually at that time I hadn't decided to have left school, so I had mentioned it to them, and thinking that they would say, yeah, that's great, but you're going back at the end of the summer holidays, back to school, back to Eastbourne. But they said, no, if this is something you really want to do, then we're behind you, but you've got to be sure that you are going to put 100% into it. And obviously I sort of took that with both hands.
And so then, move forward to then sort of first ride. As you recall, you asking me for some advice, which was probably not a good thing to have done, and probably something you forgot very quickly. But what were the sort of nerves and the feelings, and approaching that first ride and then walking into the weigh-in room for the first time? Yeah,
well, going back to what you said with that first ride, I remember I had got my licence, and it had been probably about 5 months before my first ride came, and it was actually you. I remember you coming up to me and saying, have you seen to the entries? Have you had a look at the entries? And I hadn't at the time. And then obviously I knew by you saying that it was something going on. So I went and had a look and saw that I was down on Turner's Touch, which you'll be very familiar with. And all of a sudden I went from thinking, when's my first ride going to come? It's taking a while, to all of a sudden thinking, oh my God, it's here, it's actually happening. And it was sort of quite overwhelming. It all sort of happened in a flash, and it was something that had been building for a long time, but then all of a sudden the day arrived, and it was incredibly exciting. I mean, there were obviously nerves involved, and there are just small things which you sort of don't expect to be quite the way you watch racing on the TV, and things are different when you're in the moment. But everyone was going to your question about what was it like, the race day itself. Everyone was incredibly helpful, from everybody in the yard, and Jamie lending me a saddle for my first ride and things like that. It was a great experience, and like I say, I was naturally nervous, and anyone who says they're not nervous for their first ride, I think is lying. But it was great, and I obviously got the bug, and I wanted to, as soon as I got off a horse, I wanted to do it again.
And how quickly did the first winner come after that?
It took a while. I think I had my first ride it's something like July at Brighton, and then my first winner came in, I think it was sort of like January the 1st or something like that. So it took me a couple of months, but to be honest, it was only my 10th ride. Right. So it wasn't a lifetime, but some people go and have a first ride and have a first winner, but it felt like it took a while. But looking back, actually, it wasn't so long. But what I found really helped my career was actually when I went to Dubai, because I went from getting one ride a week or something like that to getting, all of a sudden, on a card I was getting sort of 6 rides. Right. And that's when I found a change in my riding, and things were improving, because you can get off one horse and think, I didn't feel quite right, and I might try something else on the next one. And that's how I found I really got better.
Yeah. And you spent quite a lot of time out in the Middle East, haven't you? You've been champion jockey in Qatar, haven't you?
I have, yeah. For the last 6 years I've been champion jockey out there, and I've been going to Dubai that was my 9th season. I've just come back from in the end of March, so that's been a long time, and to be honest, I've never actually ridden a winter. I've never done a full season riding on the all-weather here, right, which is quite remarkable, really. And also what's been so good about the Middle East is you've come from the UK, where you're doing incredibly high mileage and you're darting from track to track for evening meetings and stuck in traffic. But you go out there, and yes, I'm racing sort of 4 days a week, but it's not so much travelling. It's just that little bit more laid back, and you can get a chance to sort of relax a bit more. And as I say, I'm still riding plenty of horses, but I'm slightly sort of recharging and enjoying the lifestyle.
Perfect. It's ideal. And is it those trips out to Qatar that then created that relationship with Sheikh Fahad Qatar Racing?
No, actually, a lot of people think that, but it's completely nothing to do with Sheikh Fahad. And I actually had the position with Qatar Racing before I ever went to Qatar.
Okay.
And Sheikh Fahad, and it was actually in the days where it was Pearl Bloodstock, before Qatar Racing was actually formulated. But it was off the back of Dubai. I think I rode a winner at the Dubai Carnival on Navajo Chief for Alan Jarvis years ago now. And what I was told, that Sheikh Fahad sort of saw me out there doing well, and when I came back from Dubai, I got a call up from David Revers and went and met him, and it progressed from there.
And talk about that relationship, because that proved very fruitful. I mean, you had some big winners for those guys, and I think the relationship is still very strong now, isn't it?
Yeah, it was such a good opportunity at the time. I was at the end of my £3 claim, and all of a sudden you're off a level playing field with the best in the business. So you have to do really well coming out of your claim. And I was in that position where I was coming out of my claim and I was thinking, right, what's the next step now? What am I going to do? And that came around, and it was just the perfect transition to make, and sort of got my name out there that little bit more, and I was being put on horses in some big races at big meetings, and that is what you need. And it was fantastic, and I was incredibly grateful for that opportunity.
And talk about some of those big races, those big meetings, and the horses. One that sticks out for me, I think, was Simple Verse won the Lily Langtree. Is that right?
She did, yeah.
Glorious.
Funnily enough, I wasn't actually retained then when I won on Simple Verse, But that, going back to what you're saying, it proves I've still got a very good relationship with Sheikh Fahad. I get on with him incredibly well, and obviously ride for him whenever. So at the time, as I say, I wasn't employed by Qatar Racing, and that relationship had moved on, and they had signed O'Sheen and Andrea Azzini at the time. And it just so happened that the ride became available. I think she had 8 stone 6, which was pretty easy for me at the time. And I got the call up, which was brilliant, and won the Lily Langtree. So it just proves that the relationship went on.
At what point would you say you sort of thought, right, I'm an established rider now? Was there a tipping point?
Not as such. There wasn't a point where I thought, right, that this is great. I'm doing, I'm at the top, because I still don't feel like I'm the absolutely fully finished sort of package. I feel there's always room for improvement. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm very content. I'm very happy with how things are going at the moment. But I'm always sort of striving for that bit more. You've got your sort of top 5 jockeys in the country, and obviously I strive just to be considered as one of the top ones, and that's all I sort of want to get to, and to be considered one of the go-to guys is what any jockey wants. So I don't feel like there's been a pinpoint moment where I should say it broke through, but just over the years I feel like it's been a sort of steady progression.
Okay. Lamartodo, though, presumably is a horse who definitely has sort of thrust your name into the headlines a little bit. He's a wonderful horse, still going, still won recently, didn't he?
He does.
Talk us a bit about him and the association with him.
Yeah, it's been a really great association to have with the horse. Obviously, he got my first Group 1 on the board. He also got my second Group 1 on the board. So incredibly important horse for me in my career. And as you mentioned, he continues to keep winning at group level. So he's been a fantastic horse, and anyone in any profession needs something, or a horse in my regard to put you up the ladder onto the big stage, and he's done that for me, and obviously incredibly grateful for that.
Cool. And another horse that sort of thrust you through into the headlines, or another moment rather, was at Royal Ascot not so long ago. Frankie Dettori was obviously flying, 4 winners, looked like number 5 was going to come, and then here comes Harry Bentley. What did that feel like?
It was great. as I mentioned, I've been riding for this is my 10th season, and I've had plenty of rides at Royal Ascot over the years, and anyone knows getting a Royal Ascot winner is so hard. It's incredibly competitive racing in all the handicaps, all the group races. It's just hard to get a winner. Things need to fall right, and you're taking on the best of the best. So obviously this is my first Royal Ascot winner, and it's not like, oh, it's been a long time coming, because it's hard, and you see Hayley Turner, she's only won her first Royal Ascot winner as well this year, so just shows you how tough it can be. But it was a fantastic moment, and delighted to have just got that sort of first one out of the way, and it was very, very special.
Did it even play on your mind, the fact that you kind of foiled Frankie's, sort of 5-timer, potentially 6-timer?
No, not at all. And I know a lot of people, thinking, oh God, it would have been fantastic, and it would have been great. But I certainly didn't feel any remorse at beating him, because we're all out for ourselves. At the end of the day, it sounds very selfish, but we are all out for ourselves. It's not a team sport. So I didn't even at the time when I sort of realised there was a horse gone, I didn't even figure that it was Frankie until I sort of started to get closer. But no, it didn't play on my mind in any way.
Okay, so Frankie didn't shoot daggers
No.
in the weighing room or anything like that?
No, he was very gracious.
Okay, good. And bookmakers were talking about sending you flowers at the time?
I didn't get anything.
Okay.
I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for a nice fat envelope saying thank you very much.
I think you did save them a serious amount of money that day. Are you happy with where you are at the moment?
I am. I'm very happy with, especially how the season has the first half. Now we're sort of halfway. I'm very pleased how the first half of the season has gone. In my career, yeah, I'm delighted. If you told me a few years ago I'd have had 2 Group 1 winners, I'd be delighted, and obviously a Royal Ascot winner. But I mean, I'm one of those people. Yes, I'm happy with how things are going, but I always want more. And I think a lot of the jockeys would be the same. It's a competitive sport. You naturally have to be a competitive person, and I really am. So yes, I'm very happy with how things are going. And if I look back 10 years ago from when I first started and say this is where you're going to be, then yeah, I would have been absolutely delighted. But for me, failure wasn't even on the cards. I wasn't thinking, oh, I'll give this a go and hopefully it works out. I was perhaps naively thinking, it's just a matter of how long it takes, but I will get there. And I think I still have the sort of same mindset for the next 10 years. I'm not sort of in any way sort of a real optimist or anything. I'm quite a realistic sort of person, but I always thought it was going to happen.
Harry, thank you very much.
Thank you.